want to welcome everyone to today's Wyoming Small Business Development Center Network webinar, Hands-on AI, Building Simple Tools to Automate Your Business. The Wyoming SBDC Network is a University of Wyoming program available to all residents in the state and funded by the Wyoming Business Council and the U.S. Small Business Administration. We provide no-cost confidential advising and technical assistance to all Wyoming entrepreneurs and small business owners. Our advisors are located across the state and they can help you start a business, grow your existing business, or recover from challenges. So now I'd like to introduce Kellee Carroll, owner and managing director of Prairie Giraffe. I will turn the ship over to Kellee.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, so today is kind of a continuation on last month's talk. Today is going to be really over the shoulder, actually implementing one thing that everybody I know struggles with or has struggled with at one point in time, spam contact form submissions. So the reason that I chose this one is it solves a problem that's really frustrating and shouldn't be as hard to deal with. It seems like there are no good solutions that work even 90% of the time, and this one's pretty close to working every time. So it's good for that. It's also going to teach you like basic concepts, implementing automation software, how to connect it to AI, how to store information to use later, how to notify people, all the people that need to see that information. So it's a simple automation and a simple solution that most people can use, and you learn a lot from it. So you'll be able to take the concepts that you learn in this and kind of apply them to other scenarios or problems you might be having in your business. So yeah, we're going to basically build a lead qualification system or spam filter. The tools we're going to use today are Fillout, which is going to be our form. You don't have to use that one. I just use it because it's so versatile and free. Make.com is going to be our automation platform. OpenAI, the API, so ChatGPT is going to be the brains of the system. I was going to use Airtable, but Airtable's free. Their free tier may not work for this, so I'm going with Google Sheets. But everything that we cover in this can be applied to Airtable if you like Airtable better. I would prefer Airtable, but I was trying to keep this as low cost as possible. And everybody's kind of familiar with Google Sheets and Excel and spreadsheets. So the problem that we're trying to solve is, of course, wasted time on unqualified leads and getting those spam submissions that are people trying to steal your information or sell you something, things that your website contact form was not intended for. And so the ideal result is that you only speak with prospects and leads. You don't have to waste any more time on fake submissions or people that are just trying to get you on the phone to try to sell you. So this is just kind of going over what I already mentioned. This is going to teach you some automation basics, how to connect these automations to AI, how to apply it to different business processes, how the data flows between the different platforms, because that might seem overwhelming, but it's really not. These platforms have made it pretty easy to understand and straightforward. We're going to implement a decision phase with logic. That's where OpenAI comes in, and that's where AI is going to do some thinking and reviewing. And then with this knowledge, I've included like the things we're going to build today. You could go download right now if you go to that prairiegiraffe.com/simple-tools link there. And I mentioned that later on too. You can download the blueprints for Make, and I've already got the sheet we're going to use, a Google Sheet. I've already got a version of that. So there'll be a lot of stuff you can just kind of swipe and use. So that's nice. So yeah, head over to either now or after prairiegiraffe.com/simple-tools. And not only that, it has the how-tos of a lot of this. Some of this I'm not going to go over because there's already all these platforms have made videos on how to do it. They're way better than anything I could make. So I link to those in there so you would, to walk you through each step. So rather than watch me do it. This is kind of just going back into the reason I chose this one. You get a lead come in from your website, a notification saying you've got the form filled out. That distracts you. Let's say even if it's obviously not something you care about, you've still pivoted your attention. Let's say it's 5 to 30 minutes per lead, be it 50 a month. That's 250 to 1,500 minutes on the high end of just wasted time. So using this, you should save a lot of time because you're only going to get the submissions that have been pre-screened and miss all the bad ones. So yeah, we're going to kick this off. Design the form, then design the filter, and then test some submissions and see how it runs. Okay, so this is just a high-level overview of what we're doing today. So we're going to start with the form. We're going to build it and fill out. We're going to use Google Sheets as our database. OpenAI is the brain of the operation. It's going to do the thinking and the qualification. And then we're going to just use a simple email notification so that people will know when a good lead comes in, we'll notify whoever. So this could be Slack, it could be anything, but for this, we're just going to use email. So in this, we're going to have this is going to be the more granular flow. We've got a contact form has been submitted. We're going to save it. It's saved into Fillout itself, and we're then going to send that submission into Google Sheets. Google Sheets is going to contain our prompts. It has submission examples for the AI to pull from. These can be adjusted based on your business and what you do. They can also just be, it's nice to keep them in there because you can tweak things as you go. Sometimes the AI gets a little overzealous and starts classifying everything as spam, and so tweaking those submission examples will kind of give it more of an idea of what you're looking for. We're going to then have make.com watch for new rows in our database. Once it hits make, it's going to pull those instructions from our sheet, get your business info, send the prompts from that sheet to OpenAI. It's going to then filter, split the results, and save them back to our Google Sheet. If it's a good lead, we're then going to email whoever needs to know about that. So that's the overview. So I've already built this out. Like if you go to that simple tools link, it's all been built out, but I'm going to do it in front of you because it's one thing for me to say, here's a blueprint, and then you try to use it and it doesn't make sense how it all connects. So I'm just going to build it together. That way it should answer any questions you might have kind of about how all this works. So if you go to Fillout, it's free. They have a free tier. They have a paid tier. Of course, you can upgrade, but I haven't needed it. Most people won't need it. And so once you get logged in, just click this make a Fillout. They have templates, different things to connect, but we're not going to start on that now. So we're going to do a blank form, and we're going to just build a basic contact form. You can pick a theme. I'm just going to go with the first one. And I'm just going to give it a name. So in here now you can just, it's just like building a form. Like there's, so we're just going to do a name, email, phone, some services, so somebody knows what they want from me, they can check it, and then a message. So we're going to make name required, the email required, and then the rest of it will be optional. We'll call this first one new construction, remodel, and then other. All right, so I'm also going to add one for location, because that's something I think would be pretty important. If you're going to be building a house, you need to know where it's at. All right. So now we just have basic forms. So the nice thing about Fillout is you can share just the form, or you can embed these into your website. So even if you don't do any of this, if you just want a nice form system, this is a great company. It can do the things that you get for free in this. You would have to pay hundreds of dollars a year in other platforms. So I really recommend you check out this, even if you don't do any of the things we're talking about. All right, so we've got our form. And I'm just going to publish that as is. Well, let's preview it, make sure it actually doesn't have anything weird. Okay, no, looks good on desktop and mobile. Okay, so we've now got our form. Again, you could add any. You look over here. There's like picture choice. You could do so many things with this. But for now, we're just going to do basic contact form, because those are most common and seem to be the biggest target of people trying to sell prescription medications from Russia. So we have that. Next, you're going to click on this integrate tab, and we're just going to add it to Google Sheets. If you don't have a Google Sheets connection, there will be a button here for you to make that connection. You can add a second one also. So I added one earlier. So select your account. Most people just have one, and then hit next, and it's going to create it. So now, if you click this sheet, so it takes you, this is the sheet that it's made. So any submissions we make are going to show up in our spreadsheet. So this is now the database for our submissions coming in. So, and I've already made one. You can make a copy of it. So it's on my other screen. We're going to create some additional sheets, because we don't want to just have a list. Like, this is well and good. This might make your life easier, because then you could just skim and see the submissions, kind of get a feel for what's real and what's not, but that's not why we're here. So we're going to add some sheets. We're going to add a legit tab for legitimate submissions. We're going to make a spam tab or sheet. And then we're going to make a settings sheet. And that sheet is going to act as our, that's where our prompts are going to be saved, our business information, and any other things we would need to convey to the AI at some point could be added there. So if you expanded this out, let's say instead of just filtering spam from legitimate submissions, you started to filter, like assign them to people, this would be a great place for you to store those people and why those people would be assigned. This is the instructions you're going to be sending to the brain of the operation. I'm going to copy. So part of this isn't being used for this, but it's all good to kind of know and see. So in that sheet that I shared, you can just copy and paste this in. And so what we've got here is you would put your business information in this business info cell. This filtering instructions, there's two versions. This version I found was a little too strict, so I just saved it in this backup. Anytime you change your prompt, it's always a good idea to save it as a backup in case this goes wrong. So this is going to be the instructions to our AI for what to do, what it needs to look for, what its job is, context for why it's making its decision. And then this, we're not actually going to use this because this is doing a good enough job. But if this started to fail, this section is good for sending examples of what spam would look like. So you could tweak this and send it to the AI as well. And then this is what a legitimate submission would look like. So these are handy to have in case your filter doesn't work and you need to kind of give that AI more context for what you're talking about. These are some examples that you could use. So yeah, okay. So for our legitimate column, we're just going to use the exact same headers. And for our spam column, we're going to do the same thing. Oop, not like that. Because all the same information will be transferred from our sheet where everything's coming in and then sorted into legitimate or spam. So now that we have this, our sheet is ready to run. We can just run a quick test. I'm going to publish our form. And then let's preview our form. So I'm not going to preview it. I'm going to share it just to make sure that we actually get a real result that's saved, because preview may not do that. So here's our form. Again, these can be embedded in websites. You can make them look different ways, or you can just share the form and put your name at the top and your logo. Like, they're really handy, but for this, it's super bare bones. So just basic information you might see on your, once we submit, we get a little animation. And so now if we go back into our sheet, we can see our submission has been saved into our sheet. Now, if for some reason you lost this sheet, Fillout is saving it internally. So that's always an option. And again, it's pretty cool. They've got, analytics. You can buy summaries. If somebody had a partial submission, you can upgrade to get those. But just, I don't want you to be afraid. Like, if somebody accidentally deletes this sheet, your contacts aren't gone. They're stored inside here. So it's just a quick note for that. We've got our fill out completed and we know it's saving to our sheet. So we're on track there. So now we're going to come into Make. So make.com used to be known as Integromat. It's going to be our automation platform. Can do tons of things. This one we're doing today is super simple. If you haven't got an account, if you have an account, go to log in. If you don't have one, just click Get Started Free and then follow the steps. And it is free to get started. You might want one of the paid accounts because you get a little bit more features, but you can start for free. So you'd go to login. So yours will not have all this stuff. It'll be empty. But in mine, we're going to go into here. So we're going to create a new scenario. once we're into this point, it's time to start making our automation flow. So this is, we're going to make the thing that actually does what we want it to do. So first step, title it with something meaningful. Now in the beginning, if this is your first automation, it'll be real simple. We're only going to have two. You'll have two scenarios. It's easy to keep track. Once you get going on this, you like when you saw when I opened my account, you'll end up with hundreds eventually. So, or even just 10, and trying to keep track of them with a poor labeling makes your life harder. So, like I like to do descriptive naming, so spam filter. So there, this is there. So the purpose, it's our spam filter. It's going to watch for new contact submissions and sort those. So inside this automation, we need a trigger. We need it to be something to kick off the process. So in this, we're going to do Google Sheets, and we're going to watch for new rows. So inside our sheet, okay, let me back up one step. So if you don't have a connection, it'll warn you. You won't have connections. It's on how to do that is in the downloads link, but you just click add here, and then it walks you through. You sign in with Google, you give it a name, and then that's how you add a new connection. So once you're done with that, you'll see this here. So instead of search with path, what we're going to do is we want it to only reference this sheet. And so what we're going to do is we're going to copy this string of numbers and letters and symbols between these two slashes. And so just highlight them and then Control C, copy. And so we're going to say search method is going to be manual, and we're going to enter in that ID. Now, if you look down here in these pink words, it shows you how to do exactly what we just did, and it shows this ABC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the ID. So don't worry if you forget where I copy and pasted, they show you in there. The sheet name, it's not talking about the spreadsheet name, it's talking about the actual sheet name. I left it sheet 1 because when I was setting this up and testing it, if I changed that, every now and then it would cause an issue. It didn't seem to bother these, but if I changed that one, sometimes the sheet could have problems. So I left that, leave that as sheet 1. And so we go back to make, and we give it our sheet name. The table does contain headers. We're just looking at A1 through Z1, and I'm going to give it a limit of 1. You can give it as many as you want, but I'm just wanting it to do it as each row comes in, but you could have it do 10. We're just going to do 1 for this example. Now we want it to check all rows that are added. We want it to run them all. We don't want it to skip any. So at this point, we've got a trigger. So when a new row is added, when a new submission is added, it's going to watch that. We've got it set to run every 15 minutes. You can change that to whatever you want it to be. And there's also different ways to make it run instantly, but for this purpose, I think 15 minutes is fine. So now that we have this, I'm going to do 2 things. We're going to rename it so that in the future we know what this does. So it's going to watch for new form submission. And then we're going to run this module only. You want to do that because you want to see if it errored out, if there was some kind of issue. You want to know that before you start relying on this thing, and then it just breaks for for what'll seem like no reason. So you can catch that here, it's much better. So our next step is in this flow, we get a form submission and we've saved it. Well, now we need to send that to Make. So Make is watching for new rows and we need to get those AI instructions. Well, we save those in our settings tab right here. We also need our business info. So what we're going to do is tell it, we're going to do a Google Sheets module and we're going to get a cell. So our connection should still be the same connection. We're going to enter manually again. So we've got our sheet ID, our sheet name, it's going to be settings. And our cell is going to be B3. So easy as that. We're going to rename it. To get AI instructions or filtering instructions, and we're going to run this module only. All right. And now we can see that that is exactly what we have in that cell. So it worked. So now we're getting our instructions. Now let's get our business info. So we're going to get a cell. We are going to use our ID manually. Our sheet name will be settings again. And then our cell will be B2 because it's right here, our business name, industry, main services, all that. So we have that. We're going to rename so that our future selves knows what this is. All right. So now, I'll run it again. All right, so it pulls our business information so that our AI will have context for what we do. All right, now we need to send it to our AI. We need to send it to something to process and review. So in our list of modules, you can scroll. There's so many. You want to use the search function. You just search OpenAI. We are going to create a completion. You could message an assistant, but you'd have to make an assistant that's kind of more advanced and later. You can do so many different things in this, like analyze images, generate images, all this stuff. We're not going to do any of that. We're just going to create a completion because we want to just send the information to AI, have it analyze it, and send us back an answer. Again, you have to make a connection. And this time it's a little bit more complicated. You have to get an API key. If you go to openai.com, we'll go back a step because that's not what you'll see. So openai.com, and then on the left side, you'll see this AI platform link. Click on that. And then this is all about their API platform, gives you some pricing. For this, the pricing is going to be super low, like high volume, $2 a month, low volume, 10 cents. Like, you're not even going to notice it. So on the left, it says API login, or on the top, if you click this API platform, this is where you can create your account and log in. And the links for how to do that and videos on how to do that are in that download link, the simple tools link. So we're not going to go through it, but this is what you'll expect to see. Oh, also, you don't do that every time. So I should back up because that might seem like a lot. Once you make these connections, you can use them across all your scenarios or all of your automations. So once you make an OpenAI API key and you connect it, you don't have to do that every time. It's just as simple as, you know, selecting the one that you've made. Select your connection. Our method is going to be just chat completion, GPT, and O1 models. This does not need an O1 model. What we're really going to just use is the O4 mini because it's cheap and it's powerful enough for what we need to do. Now, if you started finding that it wasn't able to understand, if it needs more brain power, use a more expensive model. So you could use just a 4.0 or maybe an O3 mini. It just depends on what you need. You can go all the way up to O1 mini, but it's just way more horsepower than you need for this situation. So, okay, we have our model. Now we're going to tell it, we need to send it a message. So we're going to make that role, the role as a user, and the text content we're going to send it. I am going to copy from one I did earlier because we're going to write some things in there and I'd rather explain than make you watch me type. Okay. So we are going to send it. We're going to send it this value. So this, I'm going to delete it just in case it's the wrong one. We're going to send it the main value, which you can see because of our testing, we can see the first part of that text right here. So we're going to send it the instructions. This is the main prompt of what we're going to tell the AI to do. Now, a lot of these videos of people like me might watch, they will put the prompt directly in here. That's okay. I like to put it in more of a table or a database because I don't always want to come in here and go digging into these to try to find the prompt. If I keep it in here, I can have my backup versions. I can also, you know, Control F and search the document for specific words. It's just much more, I find it's much more user-friendly for testing. If I want to change the prompt, if I say, oh, these are, you know, it's completely doing this wrong, I need to review the prompt. It's just so much easier to go in here and start typing than go in here and find this. But if that's how your mind works, if that's how you like to do things, that's totally fine. It's just not how I like to do them. So, okay, so I've labeled our business info. So, you know, we can see the text, business name, James Construction, da-da. And now our form fields. So if you see here, we can see, okay, so name, and I labeled each of them. If you don't, they don't come labeled, it'll just send it. You know, we can see just says John Doe, it doesn't say name John Doe. So you want to label your fields if the AI needs that information. So name, email, phone number, project location, service, and then the message. So now the AI is going to get its base prompt, our business info, and the form information that it needs to review. Sometimes if this won't be an issue for this, for what we're doing today. If you start doing more thought heavy operations, you might need to adjust these max completion tokens. If you just delete it, it lets it use the max number. I've only had a few times where I've had to go over this, but sometimes you run into that. So if the responses you get back are half thoughts, you might need to check that. But for this, that's not going to be an issue. That's just a FYI. All right. So we've got all our information. We're sending it to AI. Well, now, because if we read our prompt, our AI is going to output two things. It's either going to output the word legit or the word spam. And that is how our automation is going to know where to send the information, how to categorize the information. So we need a way to make sure that whatever it says about what it sees goes to the right place and you don't end up with our wires crossed. So we're going to put in a router. There are other ways of doing this, but the router is the simplest and easy to understand. And so we're going to go back to our Google Sheets after a router, and we are going to add a row. So what we want to happen is if it decides that the result, the submission is spam, we want it to save it in the spam sheet. So we're going to re-enter our sheet ID. Our sheet name is spam, and our column range is A to Z. And so for this, now it's going to say, well, what do you want to save in A, B, C? So it's, in column A, column B, column C. So because we ran that first module, we now have labels for these things. So we know that A is A. See how they label it A, B is B. Now, if you don't want it like this, you could edit the sheet, but I want to keep all the information exactly the same. So we're going to do C is C, D is D. Okay. And then we can leave the rest blank because you can see we had nothing else come through. So that should give us everything we need. And yeah, unformatted, we don't care about the format. So we click save. We are going to rename this. All right. So the next piece, and this is, could have done this before, this will save you a lot of time. We're just going to hit clone, right click and clone, delete this module. And now we're going to rename this legit submission. So everything is the same, except that our sheet name is legit. Now, it's a good idea to copy and paste them from, here to there, but these are pretty simple, so we don't really need to do that. And everything stays the same, and we don't care about formatting, so we hit save. So now we have places for each result to go. But if we fired this off, we would have it save in both locations because there's nothing to stop it from going. There's nothing to say go here, go there. There's nothing to stop it. So what we're going to do is we are going to create filters. So we're going to call this our spam submission filter. And so if we go in here, we see that the result, now this is a new addition. So the result little icon there used to be buried and still is buried in here. So you can see choices, message, content is where that used to be. They've added this. I'm just saying that in case they remove it. If one day you come in here and you don't see the result, it's in there. So, all right. So we want things to flow this way if our result is equal to spam, because that's what we've told our AI to output. We want it to output a single word, either spam or legit. So this way, we're for continuity. So a legitimate submission, we want to go this route. And so again, result and legit. Now I'm doing all caps because we told our AI to do all caps. If that becomes an issue, you can switch to case insensitive. Like if things stop flowing and you find that for some reason the AI doesn't always put out all caps, you can switch it to case insensitive. All right. That is the bulk. Like this is our workhorse for the system. So don't forget to hit save. The system's pretty good about reminding you, but don't forget to hit save. Otherwise, you got to redo all this. Actually, we already have one submission. I think so. We're going to run it because I already did a test submission. So I think it will see that and pick up on it, even though it's new or it's not new. So once you got it saved, just hit this run once. If you turn this on, you'll have to wait the 15 minutes or however long before it does its first run. We're just gonna hit run once because we're testing. So it did not see the old submission as, oh, because it already ran the submission. Okay, that's easy enough. This is all testing. So we're gonna do another one. All right. Okay, we have a new submission. So now if we go run once, boom. Well, that was fast. So you can see it in these little bubbles, you can see what happened. So we can see that the input was the cell we wanted, the output. You can kind of see it because if it ever errors, you'll see a little red symbol and it'll tell you why. So what we can see is if we look into messages and content on the input side, we can see everything that we sent to that AI. So it got, here's my form fields, here's the business info for the business we're trying to filter for, and then here's the prompt or the instructions on how to do its job. And so it output legit because I wanted a kitchen remodel, and the filter, it blocked it here because it was not spam and it was legit, and then it saved it. So now we go back into our sheet. I've been saved here under the legitimate contact page. So that's how that worked. That's a good sign. If it had marked that as spam, we need to tweak our prompt, figure out why. This time we're going to make sure that it can fail. We're going to make sure it can recognize spam. So don't remember to spell warranty. Warranty, okay. Which can make it ridiculous. All right, to confirm it can do it. Okay, so now we have, here's our Jane Smith spam trying to solicit something. We don't want that. We hit run once again. Oh, this time they recognized it as spam. It knows something's they're selling something. So we go in here, we can see in our spam file that that's where it did. The other good thing is you can see, because we're saving them, you could see maybe this if it starts filtering things it's not supposed to filter, you can go in and see that. All right. So first part done, and now it filters our spam. That is handy. So next, we need to know when somebody is like when we've got a legitimate submission. We need to know that so we can get back to them and you know, make the sale. So again, we're going to make a new scenario. This scenario, okay, let me back up. We could have put this in the first scenario. You could do this with one scenario. We could just tack on these 3 modules we're about to build onto the end of legit submission. So you could have put it right here. I'm not going to do that because you might have a situation where you don't trust it, you want to do more processing, something like that. So just know you could have done this in 1, but I'm doing it in 2. Feel free to do it however you'd like. So we're going to name it. We're naming it spam filter, and this one's going to be send email notification. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch for new rows, just like we did before. We have our connection already set up, so we don't need to worry about that. And we're going to, just like before, we're going to manually enter our spreadsheet ID. Our sheet name is now legit because we don't want to know if spam comes in. And we have another scenario handling just the general filtering. It has headers. We're just doing A through Z, and I'll leave this at 2 just in case 2 were to come in at once. It really won't matter. And we're going to say run for all. I'm not going to run this one yet because I want to use our first submissions if we can when we test it. But normally you would right click and hit run this module only to test it. We're going to rename it to for legit submissions. All right, and then we are going to watch our Google Drive. Anything you do with Google Docs, Sheets, anything, any Google product inside Make, if you want to get a share link, you know, if we were to share this, we would just go up here and we'd hit share, and then we'd, you know, make our settings and share that with whoever. There isn't an automated way inside Make, inside the sheet module, so inside this module to do that. So what we have to do is if we have a process where we want to share that link, we have to go into here and get a share link. So what we're going to do. This will require you to make another connection. You just hit add, it'll walk you through the steps, same as before. We are going to get the share link. It's my drive or wherever you've saved it. We're going to be pulling a file because a Google Sheet document is a file. The ID is going to be the spreadsheet ID that we're pulling or watching. We're going to make the role whatever we want it to be. So if you were sending this notification to like a staff member and you don't want them to be able to change the sheet, let's say like edit the sheet, don't set it to owner, commenter, writer, just reader, anyone, and then that allows anybody with that link to be able to view that. If you don't want that, feel free to adjust settings as needed. And we're not going to allow file discovery, that's not needed. So we're pulling in the information from the sheet when a new row is added, and then we are pulling in the share link from that sheet. Our next step is going to be send that email. So we're going to do the email module, and we're going to do send an email. I've got my Google connections, so I don't know if I need that one. Yeah, just pick a connection. It'll warn you if it's not going to work. Save message after sending. We're not going to do that. 2, we're just going to add myself as a recipient. Now what you could do, so you don't have to type in that field. If you wanted to, like if this was something that needed to be more dynamic, under your settings tab, you could have a different contact information, and based on who this was for, enter that in there instead. So that's, remember in the beginning I was saying we could enter, do different information from this, and this can kind of act as our instructions and variables to send to different systems. That can be done here. For this though, we're just going to type in my email address. The subject, new filtered submission. We're just going to leave that as HTML. Now, one kind of tricky thing, it's not really tricky, it's just if you don't know it, the first time you get an email, it'll look weird. So because we're doing HTML, we should do HTML tags. So we're just going to do p tags so that it stacks one of these, it stacks these on top of each other. If we remove those p tags, it does them all in a straight line. So it would just be one after another. So these aren't required, but they do make it a little bit prettier. So so in this, I'm sending, the reason that we pulled that share link is we're sending, instead of just sending the information, because you don't have to do this form submission dashboard. I'm using our spreadsheet as a dashboard, and I'm sending it to the person. So in this scenario, I'm sending it to myself. And if I need more information, like when did this come in and things like that, I can just click that and review. So in this form submission dashboard, I'm just going to enter the share link right there. And none of this changes, but of course, I labeled message is going to be, message. Service is the service needed. Project location. I'm just redoing these in case it might say that they're there. I pulled it from another scenario, so sometimes that can cause issues. So I'm just re-adding them. And then name. Okay, so we got basic contact information, then a link to the dashboard. This is internal, so I don't need a bunch of information. If this were going external, or somebody needed to know what this thing was, you could just do, I'm just going to do our p tag. There. So now our email will have a little bit more context. So when they get it, it wouldn't. But if you're emailing yourself, you'll know what this is. So just be thinking about, what does the end user need to see? We don't have any attachments. You can add attachments. Let's say your form had images. You could add those there, but we don't have that. Now that we have this set up, I'm just going to save it and confirm that we still have all right, we have a legit form submission. And now we will run it. Okay, so I can see there pulled pulled my information from my form, got my share link, and send my message. So if it hadn't, you would get like one of these would be red and it would say error. A little thing pops up and tells you there's been an error. So now I'm going to go to my email and see if we got an email. Okay. So this is what we got in our email. Yeah, that's perfect. We have our contacts, we have what it's from, everything looks good. Phone number, location, model, everything came through. And because it gave us this share link, if we click that, I mean, it's gonna be the same, but we can see, you know, we have more information. If there was more information, we don't, but if there was, it's working. We have this, it's up and running. Like I said, this could have been added to there. I like to keep them separate. You can add them together if you'd like to, but in order to make sure this runs from now on, we're going to flip this little switch to on. You can do these different options. On demand is going to be whenever I click the run button. So you're going to probably do some regular interval. If your leads aren't time sensitive and you'd really rather just kind of get them all in one group, you could do once a day. Most people are going to do some kind of regular interval, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. You'll want to set that based on your make.com membership tier. So the free tier, you get like, I think it's 1,000 runs of it. So it's operations, they call them. Each of these is an operation. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't think it counts routers. So we have 6 possible operations, probably 5. I don't think it counts the filtered, the non-used branch. So 5 operations. So those can add up. So every 5 minutes, that could get to be a lot. So you may want to do once an hour, something like that. And then saved, we can then exit, just hit the little back arrow, and there we go. And then as you're running, you'll see you have a history, and you can see these are only saved for so long. So if you have an error a month ago, it won't be in there. But if you have an error a day ago, you can go in here and see, and it'll show you the execution log and see how things came out. So we're gonna do the same thing for this. We're gonna say every 15 minutes we want to run. This scenario will check to see if there's been any new legitimate submissions, and when there are, every 15 minutes, it will run and notify whoever needs to see them. All right. Sorry had to get out of there. Okay. Same thing, history, incomplete executions, you can see different information. You go to make.com pricing, yeah, 1,000 operations a month. And then 2,000 of their apps. So, but again, like if you start doing this, in the beginning, 10,000 operations is a ton. So as long as you don't go crazy and make, like, you can get into scenarios where you'll loop an entire branch. So let's say in this, this pulls 12 records and then it has to run 12 times. So then that would be 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. So that can add up. That's not very common for something like this. For this, it's going to be like 1 or 2. So it'd be like 1 or 5, 10 for 2. I shared this Whimsical board. I don't know if you've used Whimsical. It's a pretty cool platform, kind of like Miro. This gives you the outlay or the overview of how that system works. I also gave you the blueprints for these, and if you come in here and you make a new scenario, I'm just going to do the build from scratch option. Okay, if you go down here at the bottom, you'll see these this more, and you can import a blueprint, and so you can just choose the file that we just made and load it, and so then you don't have to go back rewatch this and try to. I mean, I would rewatch it and kind of go over it, but you'll have this. You just have to make your own connections. It won't have any of my connections in it, but that'll really save you some time setting all this up. But yeah, so if you look in here, I have some other automations you could try making. I think I talked in the last one about a proposal generator. So in this one, you get a sales call, it make a decision, is it recorded or not? If it's not, have a form. You have a fill out form that your salesperson or you fills out while on the call. If it is recorded, you can say either automatically or copy paste, save the transcript into a Google Sheet or an Airtable database. You could also complete the form and save that too. It's optional. Once you've got that in there, you can use make.com to use webhooks and buttons, so or links. And basically, you'd enter all your information in and either have it watch for rows added or automatic, like you click a button and it would read all that row. So you send that information to Make, send it to OpenAI. It creates from a Google Docs template. That's one cool thing about Make, is that you can save Google Docs and Google Sheets and all their Docs products. You can have templates and use merge tags. So like things that's too tiny to see. Things like that in the document, and then Make will replace those tags with information you assign to them. So like name would be the person's name, project, description, whatever. So you can have those tags automatically populate templates. And then once it's done, notify you that the draft is ready and give you a link. And this one I said in Slack, but you could again email it to yourself. You could just save it back to like a CRM or a database. And then you just review it and send it to the client. And so that inside our database, we could have what our company is, what we do. Our products don't have proprietary information in there, but this is a proposal. So products, services, pricing, generic pricing, or you could leave pricing out and just price in the review stage. But if it's standard stuff, pricing. And so you can go from, as you're completing the sales call, you could really, assuming this form is complete, you could send it immediately after the call, because this can all be running on the call. And so, you could still be on the call. Like you could say, just keep them talking, say, hey, do you see that proposal? And, review it and send it right as they're there. I've always seen the data, like you've got so many hours to send a proposal, and then your chances of closing the deal go way down. And the further it out, you allow that doubt to creep in and whatnot, and your close rates go down. So this can eliminate that. For an onboarding welcome sequence, and I mentioned, if you get the slides, you'll see some of these mentioned here, and this is just them laid out visually. So you get a contract signed, save it to in this scenario, Airtable CRM and a customer database. You don't have to use Airtable. You could use Monday.com or HubSpot or like any of the things, but Airtable is just so flexible. So contract signed, we analyze the contract, we save it, set milestones, set contact dates, and generate an invoice. We then generate a client dashboard, generate a share link for that dashboard, saving everything back to our database, generate our welcome email, notify the staffs to review the emails, the invoice. If they're not approved, fix the errors. Once approved and the errors have been fixed, send the invoice, send the welcome email, send a calendar link. I mean, because this can all be done, so I mean, it could take onboarding from, if you've got an onboarding process, you can take it from a lot of copying and pasting or relying on kind of a automated system. Maybe your CRM does a lot of this, but you're kind of boxed into what they tell you can do. You could use Make or N8N or one of those automation platforms to kind of break out of their box and make it to fit your organization. So like in this one, it sends a calendar link for meetings because we set those meeting schedules back here. So we know, and we have our milestones set, so it knows what it needs to schedule. And so we send a calendar link once they click it, once they set those meeting dates and whatever else in our process we need to do. If not, we send reminders. If we've sent 2 reminders, we send a notification to the person who sold the thing or the account manager, like they're not responding. You know, we've got a roadblock, so that they discover it right away instead of maybe a month from now. They're like, why haven't they responded? So, so that's one onboarding sequence. And this is one people sometimes ask, well, they really always ask about it. You're supposed to be active on social media, but that's harder said than done. So if you're writing, let's say someone on your staff's writing blog posts for you, or an agency, someone's making blog posts, maybe for SEO, maybe whatever. The blog post is published. The system will scrape the contents and save it to your database. We're using Google Sheets again as your database. You can use Airtable or whatever. It finds a new row, sends that information that we scraped to OpenAI with instructions. It writes posts based on where you want to share it. Let's say you're sharing it all LinkedIn. Well, LinkedIn posts would look very different from a Twitter post in most cases. So it writes those drafts. Let's say it writes 2 weeks of drafts. We split those into their individual posts and save them back into Sheets. And then we set the publishing schedule, like when do we want those to go out? Once that's done, we notify someone, whoever's responsible for overseeing the process, that the posts are ready to review and approve or update, change, edit. Because this is a bottleneck, like that part right there is really tricky because people will put off review and approve. Like all this heavy lifting has been done. They'll put off review it and approve it indefinitely and never get any good out of it. So what I like to do is do almost like there's no set date. It will publish without you kind of incentivize people. It will publish 5 days after it's asked for their approval. You can turn that off or on. That's just something I do because it seems like if there's no dead man switch or whatever, or what we'd call it on the thing, people will just never review it and you never get any good out of the whole system. So on the date and time, publish to social channels, and your posts are shared. So you've got an active social media presence, pulling data from your own blog, your own website, and you didn't have to do, once it was set up, you didn't really have to do any of this middle part. Oh yeah, it works with Excel. Yeah, so we yeah, so it's pretty much the same list as you'd have under Google Sheets. So yeah, search workbooks, download them, different. Yeah, get a table, add a table, a whole bunch of stuff. Looks like it doesn't have get a cell. No, it does not. That's one thing when you're considering what to use. So let's say that you were going to use Excel instead of Google Sheets, and you need to get that cell. You might have to instead, like, you might have to find a workaround. So you might have to get the table or get a row. Yeah, get a row, get a table, and then inside that table, find the cell inside that table. So it might just be a little trickier. No platforms are exactly the same. The reason I keep mentioning Airtable is because it can do so much. It's a database, not a spreadsheet, because it is, and it has its own automations and it has its own interfaces. So you can essentially make whole apps out of it. But because each row has a record, it makes it so much easier to reference. So I could say, this record, I need to know this, this and this. Like, it's just a lot cleaner and easier for everybody to use. But that doesn't mean you have to use it. You could use, Sheets, Excel. If you go to their site and go to apps, you can see all of them. So we could see like CRMs, business proposals. So that proposal one, I said, you could use Google Docs or you could use all of these different proposal platforms. I'm actually pretty sure they do others like Panda Docs. They're not on the list for some reason. IT tools, OneDrive, Notion. I don't know if anybody's Appify. It's got a lot of cool things it can do. Google Cloud Vision. Yeah, there's just so many things. They do so many things. One thing that is probably going to be, as you get started with this, you're like, oh, I wonder if it could do this thing. You can always reach out and ask somebody, but if you want, you can go down here, or I'll start grab a new scenario. This AI, depending on what level you have, is how many credits. I don't know if you get any at free. You might. So you could say, I need to pull data from an Excel workbook and process it through OpenAI completion, then email the results. So you can use their built-in AI assistant and just ask it to build things, and then it can at least point you in the right direction. So like this, it's actually going to build it for me. So it's preparing blueprint. Usually it's very fast. Okay, so there. So it's going to list worksheet rows. We've got our OpenAI completion, and then we're going to send an email. So that easy. So if you're like, geez, every week I have to copy and paste this thing to there and then send it to the owner and this other guy that down over here, like, it's just a lot of busy work. You can just come in here and just say, I need a scenario to search this specific directory. Let's say search ClickUp and send results to email addresses. Let's say that was a thing that you were having to do for some reason. Oh, it's warning us that if we insert it, it will. So it's just warning us before it does anything that doing so would change the scenario. But so yeah, you can do that. Do that kind of stuff. Just ask the AI inside make how can I do this thing? And it will usually get you some kind of answer, or at least tell you what to do next. I know this was a lot to take in. Hopefully watching it done made it less intimidating. You can start to kind of use it for yourself and start saving some time. So yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Kellee. We really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you in attendance. As Kellee said, the Wyoming Small Business Development Center is here to help you succeed. So please reach out to your local SBDC advisor or visit our website for more assistance and information. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.